here. There's a circle with the letter Y, a circle with the letter Y in every other section of fencing. That is a historic symbol of Chicago. It's called the municipal device of Chicago. That letter Y shape represents Wolf Point, the fork in the river. So keep your eye out. You might see that letter Y on shields or circles all around the city on historic buildings. It used to be very popular. It's having a bit of a revival now with the construction of the Wolf Point high-rises. Anyway, I want to point out there's a beautiful view to the left down the river in a moment, so enjoy that view to our left, and I'll get back on the mic with architecture in just a moment.
This building is so reflective, it just simply disappears into the skyline. But there is actually a building here.
This is 150 North Riverside Plaza. 150 North Riverside, to our right, is by Getch Partners from 2017. Here's how it stays upright. These diagonal steel beams focus its weight to its central core, and inside the top of the tower, there are 150,000 gallons or 400,000 liters of water in a mass damper system. When wind blows against the building, water in tanks on tracks is shifted against the blow of the wind. Now, it would stay upright without the mass damper, but it prevents it from swaying nauseatingly on windy days. And actually, mass dampers are pretty common. They were not invented for that building there. Lots of skyscrapers have shiftable weight near their tops. Now, let's move on. We're going to bounce to our left next. In front of us and to our left, this glass tower here is Bank of America Tower. It's quite new. Bank of America Towers from 2021. It replaced a boring concrete 6-story office building that used to be on that site. Now, notice these shiny diagonal supports along the river. These shiny diagonal supports at the base of Bank of America Tower are meant to remind you of the diagonal undersides behind us of 150 North Riverside. These two glass towers are both by Getch Partners and meant to be unified in style with the diagonal elements they share along the river. Now, sticking to our left, after the next bridge on the left side of the boat is one of my favorites. This is the Civic Opera Building. The Civic Opera Building is from 1928 by Graham Anderson, Probst and White. It is home of the second largest opera auditorium in the United States, 3,500 seats behind this big wall labeled for your convenience. And the building on the whole is Art Deco style, vertical lines and setbacks near the top. And the whole thing resembles a giant throne. It has 2 armrests and a backrest, and the seat faces west. People have theorized that 20th century railroad magnate Mr. Samuel Insull, who bankrolled its construction and lived in the penthouse at the top for a year until he went bankrupt, wanted the Opera House to be a throne overlooking his railway business empire in the western United States. Maybe, but the truth is, Graham Anderson, Probst and White probably designed those narrow sections independently of him for a practical reason: cross-ventilation. Letting the breeze easily cross through the upper floors of a stone building baking in the summer sun was very important before air conditioning was common. A regional rail system that thousands of Chicagolanders use every day to get between the city and the suburbs. I'm not sure what that Norfolk Southern locomotive and that Department of Transportation car is doing there. That's interesting. Not sure what that's doing there. Now, anyway, all these buildings on our right side, built right above the train shed, were designed by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. They're called the Gateway Center, and they have special ventilation systems that actually bring in the diesel fumes from the locomotives beneath them and release them cleaner into the atmosphere above. Now, let's look forward and to the right. Well, I'll start talking a little early about the next building. After the next bridge, I want you to look forward and to the right. You'll see a short, small building along the river with green glass and black X's along the walls. So ahead of us and to the right, after the next bridge, you'll see a short building with black steel X's on the walls. That was a financial trading floor, the Midwest Commodities Exchange. It was designed by Skidmore, Owings & Merrill with lead architectural engineer Dr. Fazlur Rahman Khan. Dr. Fazlur Khan developed those tubular X's to support the roof using the walls and thus avoid using pillars inside, which would have caused visual obstruction across the trading floor. Now, it was an important innovation in architectural engineering, and today it is both the bakery and the gym. Now, after the next bridge on the right, there's a green glass building. Ahead of us to the right, that green glass building is Gateway 4. It's by Skidmore, Owings Merrill with lead architect James DiStefano. James DiStefano really appreciates something called contextualism, matching the physical surroundings. It's got green glass to match the green river and a curve in the building to the south to match the bend in the river south of the building. But look to the left. Because folks, in case you didn't know, you are here. This is 300 South Wacker Drive. It's a You Are Here map. That red block indicates the building's location on the river. The building is an international style building from 1973 by Epstein & Sons. It didn't have the map originally. A new owner put the building on the map with the map on the building. Installed and designed in 2013 by ESI Design. Now, after the next bridge, we're going to look to our right because on the right side of our boat is a limestone behemoth. This is the old post office on our right side. The old post office is by Graham Anderson Probst and White, built in 1932 in Art Deco style. Now, the old post office has a highway going through the first floor of it. The tunnel that the post office the tunnel that the highway goes through is an original piece of the post office's design by Graham Anderson Probst White, designed in anticipation of this expressway eventually being built. Now, the old post office is Art Deco style, and it was it was the biggest post office in the world when built in 1932. Pause for the bridge. Got asked how deep is the river. It's about 22 feet deep. That's about 6.5 meters deep. But back to the old post office. The old post office is Art Deco style. It was the biggest post office in the world. Now, here's the thing. The reason why Chicago had the biggest post office in the world is catalogs. We were the mail order retail capital of the world. Montgomery Ward's, Sears and Roebuck, Marshall Fields, and Spiegel were all founded here. Centers here, taking advantage of our central location for nationwide shipping. Up until the late 20th century, those catalog orders were passing through the biggest post office in the world that we just sailed by. Now, for any young folks on the boat, a catalog is if you imagine Amazon.com printed as a book. It would somehow get into your mailbox. You'd flip through the pages, grab the one phone in the house off the wall, and call the company to tell them what you wanted. Those products would arrive not with 24-hour overnight shipping, but somewhere from 2 to 6 weeks. And despite being printed books, they offered a wide variety of goods. In their heyday, they were often printed bigger than phone books. Curvy concrete building to our left, that is River City. River City is from 1986 by Bertrand Goldberg. That sounds familiar. Goldberg is the same guy who designed Marina City downtown, those two circular towers downtown. So, Goldberg favored not only these round natural shapes, but he also had a philosophy of residential architecture that called for the inclusion of community space in the buildings he designed. For instance, River City here has over an acre of shared common space under a skylit atrium. They call it an indoor park, all according to Goldberg's philosophy of allowing community space within the big residential buildings he designed. He thought of them as cities within cities, hence we have a River City here and Marina City downtown. smokestacks ahead of us is the old coal power plant for Union Station. Union Station burnt coal at that plant all the way up until 2011. It's been abandoned since then. It's on land owned by Amtrak. It'll likely be demolished eventually. Just hasn't been necessary to go through all that effort yet. It's industrial Art Deco style by Graham Anderson, Probst, and White. And then after we get past the coal plant, we'll talk about the fire a bit. In front of us and to our right are these two bridges in the upright position. In front of us on the railroad bridges. They are no longer in use. They are here because it's cheaper to stick them up and leave them rather than demolish them properly. Now, in addition, notice that the second bridge has two slabs of concrete on either side of the bridge. Two slabs of concrete on either side. Those are the bridge's counterweights. They are a pivot point that would only take about a 100 horsepower engine to move that bridge down and back up. That style of drawbridge that rotates up and down in a pivot using counterweights is called a bascule trunnion style drawbridge. And every bridge we've gone under today is a bascule trunnion style drawbridge, except Chicago Avenue, which is not a movable bridge. Now, let's bounce to our left. On the left side of our boat is a park along the river. This is Ping Tom Memorial Park. It's the largest park in Chicago's Chinatown. Downtown Chinatown is on Wentworth Avenue, just beyond the park. Now, it's a great place to visit, by the way. You can get there on the Red Line, Fairmount Chinatown Station. Anyway, Ping Tom Park is named after Ping Tom. He was a civic leader born in Chinatown in the 1930s. He grew up to become a lawyer in the 1960s, when the Dan Ryan Expressway was built on the south side of town. The process of building that highway destroyed the park space that Chinatown had. Ping Tom lobbied City Hall for many years to build Chinatown a new park. Unfortunately, the man himself passed away before the park opened in 1999. This is Ping Tom Memorial Park here on our left side. On both sides of 18th Street, the same Ping Tom Park. Now, after we get past 18th Street, you're going to see another bridge. Here's the thing. In Chicago, we have 38 movable bridges. 37 of them are bascule trunnion style. And right in front of us, after 18th Street, ahead of us, you'll see the one movable bridge in town that's different. Ahead of us is the Canal Street Railroad Bridge, also called the Amtrak Bridge. It's the oldest operational vertical lift bridge in the United States. It was built in 1914. It's still operational. Dozens of trains a day go over it, and it's still used on a regular basis. When that bridge is raised, it's hoisted in one piece vertically between the two towers, and then lowered back down into place. Now, that bridge is lifted the most often, but we also still lift the other drawbridges in town. We typically lift all the drawbridges on the south and main branches of the river on Wednesdays and Saturdays in the spring and the fall. We lift the bridges in the spring to let privately owned recreational sailboats move from winter storage on the river under the raised bridges to the lake, where they stay all summer. And then in the month of October, we lift the bridges again to let those sailboats back down into winter storage, again with their masts up under the raised bridges. So come to Chicago on a Wednesday or Saturday in the spring or the fall. You might get to see the bridges lift with a flotilla of sailboats making their way either to the lake or back to winter storage. limestone tower with a black pyramid-shaped roof and a silver statue standing on that roof. So in front of us and up to the right, stone tower, black roof, silver statue on that roof. That's the Chicago Board of Trade building, and that big glass addition just in front of it is an addition to the Board of Trade building as well. Now, the original stone portion is from 1930 by Halliburton and Root in Art Deco style. Vertical lines and setbacks visible from here. It was the tallest building in Chicago for 25 years, from 1930 until 1955. And that glass addition is by Helmut Jahn from 1980. Now, the statue on the roof of the Board of Trade building is meant to be a depiction of the Roman goddess Ceres, goddess of agriculture and abundance, because the Board of Trade is an agriculture, futures, and commodities exchange. Now, in front of us on the right, that brown granite-clad tower with a big glass cylinder on the roof is 311 South Wacker Drive. 311 South Wacker in front of us to our right. Now, it's from 1990 by Cohn, Pedersen, and Fox Architects. The cylinder on the roof is a light fixture with 1,400 fluorescent light bulbs inside it. Originally, it had 2,000 light bulbs, which made it so bright birds would think it was the moon and they'd fly into it sometimes. So it was recommended they remove 600 bulbs. They did. The birds fly by unimpeded. It's still the brightest thing in the nighttime skyline. And the whole reason that that light fixture is there is, of course, as Cohn, Pedersen, and Fox's answer to the question, how will our tower stand out next to the tallest building in Chicago? So here we go. In front of us and up to the right, that giant dark steel tower with bronze-tinted windows and two white antennas on top is the tallest building in the city of Chicago. The name of it is spelled W-I-L-L-I-S. That's pronounced Sears Tower. Its original name was Sears Tower. Its official name today is Willis Tower, but in our hearts, for the most part, it remains Sears Tower. It is the tallest building in Chicago. It was the tallest building in the world for 22 years, from 1974 until 1996. How tall is it? It is 1,454 feet tall, which is 443 meters tall, and it has 110 stories. None of those numbers include the antennas on top. The antennas do not count toward the height of the building. Even without them, it was the tallest building in the world. Now, the Sears Tower, or Willis Tower today, was designed by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill Architects. The lead architect was Mr. Bruce Graham, and the lead structural engineer was Dr. Fazlur Rahman Khan. Now, if you look up at it, you'll be able to see it again in a moment, up and to our right. You'll see it's got those different levels of roof. Each level of the roof is the roof of a semi-independent square tower. The building is composed out of 9 structurally separate square towers in a 3x3 grid at the base. They go up to different heights and are bundled together to support each other. That's called tubular bundled construction, and that was developed by Dr. Fazlur Khan specifically for the Sears Tower. Now, look up near the top. You can see those 5 glass boxes sticking out of the wall. If you wave up at them, there will be people inside them waving back down at you. Has anyone on the boat been in those glass boxes? That's the ledge, a feature of Sky Deck, the public observation deck on the 103rd floor of the Willis Tower. And finally, its name. Folks, I know that a lot of people are curious about the name. So the original owner and main tenant of the building was the headquarters of Sears Department Stores. Sears moved out and sold it in the 90s, and the new owner, Blackstone Realty Group, kept the name Sears Tower until 2002, when, desperate for cash, they sold the naming rights of the building to the Willis Insurance Group of London, England. Willis owns the name of the building. Blackstone still owns the building itself. All right. Now, we're going to keep looking forward and to our right. So after the next bridge, I'm talking a little early again, I'm jumping ahead. After the next bridge to our right, there's a big brown granite building consisting of 2 towers connected at the bottom with a floor between them. That is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center, ahead of us and to our right, built in 1986, designed by Fujikawa and Johnson Architects. Now, the CME Group, as you'll see it's called today, is the largest derivatives exchange in the world by value of assets traded in it. Derivatives is a type of financial trading with its roots in agriculture, futures, and commodities. That's the same thing as the Board of Trade. In fact, the Board of Trade is a subsidiary of the CME Group today. Now, the middle floor was where the actual physical trading floor was, and as such, it didn't have many pillars inside to avoid causing obstruction across the floor, which meant there wasn't much support at the bottom middle of this building, which meant in turn that the 2 towers could have potentially collapsed in toward each other. So, to counteract against that, the centers of gravity on the 2 towers are designed to be fractions of an inch farther apart from each other at the bottom half, and then closer together again at the top half. So it's a sort of center of gravity wise, they go like this, that rebalances them against the weight of the floor in the middle. You can't see that from the outside, it's an internal design thing. North Riverside was the first building built directly over the railroad on the west side of the river. When Samuel Insull, who owned the rail yard, had the idea to make some money by selling the air above his land. That's called air rights, selling the right to build in air that above land that you still own. Now, in front of us and up to our left, after the next bridge, ahead of us to our left, there's a white steel X on the roof of this gray building after the bridge. White steel X there. That is a truss system. The south end of this building is built directly over a dense area of railroads, which took up so much space that there wasn't much space to support the building from the ground up. So instead, the south end of the building is hanging from the trusses on the roof rather than supported from the ground below. North Riverside from 1990 by Perkins and Will. It's been owned by the Boeing Company since 2002, but it was originally the home of more of a down-to-earth company, that being Morton Salt. It's by Cohn, Pedersen, and Fox from 1983. Now, it's a great example of contextual architecture. Green glass to match the green river, and the building curves to match the bend in the river. Now, in addition, 333 West Wacker is postmodern style. It's got classical marble and granite at the base, modern glass and steel throughout. Postmodern means mixing past with present. And folks, 333 West Wacker is where Ferris Bueller's dad's office is. In Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Mr. Bueller looks out one of these green windows to the parade on the street below. Speaking of below, on the right side of the boat below eye level is the Chicago Riverwalk. The Chicago Riverwalk in its current form is only about 20 years old. It's about 1.5 miles long from Lake Street behind us to the lakefront ahead of us. Now, the Chicago Riverwalk was principally designed by Carol Ross Barney of Ross Barney Architects, based right here in Chicago. She prefers to focus on landscape and public architecture as opposed to privately owned buildings that the public wouldn't use much. Every night at 9 o'clock and 9:30, they do the same show, a program of visual arts set to music, the same half-hour show twice in a row, once at 9, once at 9:30, and they change what the show is every few weeks, and the speakers to hear the soundtrack are right here along the Riverwalk to our right. Exterior, it's from 1968 by C.F. Murphy and Associates. Now, after the next bridge to our right, that tall, dark, greenish-gray tower is by Roche and Dinkaloo. It's home of the Leo Burnett Advertising Agency, which is a company that you might not know by name, but you do know the characters that they created, including Ronald McDonald, the Keebler Elves, Snap, Crackle, and Pop, the Jolly Green Giant, and Tony the Tiger, just to name a few. All originally Chicagoan, all from Leo Burnett, there in that green building, green-gray tower today. Green tower with gold on top ahead of us to the right. That's the Carbide and Carbon building. It's from 1928 by the Burnham brothers. Now, it was built during Prohibition. when all alcohol was illegal in the United States. That green tower that tapers up to a decorative golden topper is meant to resemble a champagne bottle in protest to prohibition. In addition, it's the only building in the city clad with green terracotta tile, and the gold on top is real gold leaf. Now, moving backwards from the champagne bottle, directly to our right after this bridge, there's a big fancy stone building with a little dome on top. That's the old Jewelers building. It's from 1927 by Jaber and Dinkelberg. Here's the thing. The original developer of that building envisioned it becoming a hub of the nationwide jewelry industry, and thus installed one of the world's first car elevators to attract jewelers so that they could drive in and out with their valuables in the safety of their car, avoiding the mean streets of Al Capone era Chicago. It didn't work. Not many jewelers ever set up shop in the Jewelers building, but the name stuck. We still call it the old Jewelers building. It's French Beaux-Arts style architecture. The Wrigley building is an icon of Chicago. It was finished in 1924, designed by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, and of course it was originally the home of the Wrigley Company of chewing gum fame. Now, the Wrigley Company is still headquartered here in Chicago, but no longer in this historic building, and the Wrigley building is clad with over 300,000 individual white glazed terracotta tiles. Now, terracotta is very common in Chicago because in the early 1900s, terracotta was cheap to buy but easy to make look fancy and fireproof. One of the earliest fireproof materials we used to protect our city after the Great Chicago Fire. Blue glass tower. Very tall blue glass tower ahead of us with a bit of a wiggly shape. That's the St. Regis, Chicago. Now, the St. Regis was finished in 2020. It is 1,200 feet or 365 meters tall, currently the third tallest building in Chicago, and the current tallest building in the world designed by a woman, a lead female architect. That woman is Jeannie Gang. Jeannie Gang is based right here in Chicago with her firm Studio Gang Architects. Now, the middle tower of the St. Regis structurally does not rest on the ground. It's suspended in the air between the other two, allowing for this driveway right underneath it to our right. And up near the top of the tallest tower of the St. Regis, there are 2 floors missing. Up near the top of the tallest tower, there are 2 floors missing. As the building went up, the architects noticed that the wind was causing the frame to bend a bit more than anticipated. Now, the steel frame could sway in the wind all day long and stay upright, no problem. The issue was that it was bending so much it could have cracked the windows. So in order to protect the windows and increase the value of the condos on top, they made the choice to not build the interiors of the 84th or 85th floors, to instead let the wind blow through the frame around the elevator and utility shafts enclosed in the center. That's called a blow-through feature.
That's all, folks, as they say. I hope you enjoyed coming along with us. Chicago Architectural River Cruise is definitely worthwhile. Can't put every single bit that he said in the video, so come and enjoy it for yourselves. We did the 90-minute one. It's more expensive than the 45 minutes tour, but I think it's definitely well worth it. So if you like the video, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time for travel and review videos. Bye.